When I share my plan to sell everything I own and move abroad, most people ask me about money, healthcare, or visas. And honestly, I've done all the research and I've figured all that out. What scares me the most is something I haven't shared with anyone, which is waking up somewhere beautiful and having a life that means nothing to anyone, that nothing I do matters to anyone, not even myself. So, although my property back in Arizona hasn't sold yet, I'm in the Philippines doing the boots on the ground phase, trying to visit the actual places that I'm considering for retirement to feel their energy and just determine where I want to spend a significant amount of time. But instead of sharing about the destination this time, today I'm going to share my real fears and what I'm trying to do about it. So when it comes to money, language, healthcare, where to live, all of that stuff, I did the research. And so I planned as best as I can for that. So that's not my real fear. So today I wanted to share what's actually on my mind about retiring abroad, my real concerns, and what I intend to do about it. So everything in my former life gave me structure. I had a day job prior to retiring. I had routine. I had neighbors and some sense of community, even though I lived a very rural life in Arizona. But now that I'm early retired at age 55, I don't have that job anymore. And the job is what gave my day most of its structure. So now, without that and being mobile, I'm starting to feel a little bit unanchored, untethered, disconnected. It's a vague feeling of not having any structure in my life. And when things are unstructured, they feel psychologically potentially disorganized without any solid, firm foundation. So having an anchor, I don't think is about actually being in a specific location. And it's not necessarily about the specific people that are around you. I think a sense of being anchored and rooted in a place comes from having a sense of purpose. And honestly, I don't really have that sense of purpose right now. Yeah, I can create a routine. I'm here in Cebu now and I'll be here for a month. I'm staying in a condo and I can get into a routine. There's a pool, there's a gym, there's a grocery store, and there's neighborhoods to explore. But even establishing that routine, I don't think is going to create a sense of rootedness or being anchored or having a sense of purpose. So without that sense of purpose and no real friendships here or a sense of community, if I'm having a really bad day, who do I call? Or if I'm having a problem, a logistical problem or a medical problem, there's no one to rely on. That's definitely part of what concerns me. But the bigger concern is, what if I build a life here that doesn't feel like a life worth having? What if I end up in a beautiful place, feeling disconnected, lonely, adrift, basically? And I guess the best way to put it is, what happens if what I do in my life doesn't really matter to anyone around me or even to myself? You know, it's one thing to be solo, like unaccompanied, actually traveling alone, but it's a whole nother thing to actually feel lonely. And most of the time in my life, when there's structure and routine, I'm too busy to feel lonely. But without that structure or routine, I can sense that it's actually starting to creep in already. So I've felt this before though. Back in 2013, I went to the Burning Man Festival. If you're not familiar with it, Google it, your mind will be blown. But it's a festival out in the middle of the desert with about 70,000 people. And I went for that first time in 2013, totally solo. I had a camp to stay in, and there were people around, but I didn't have a girlfriend or anyone special that I went with. And being among that many people, I started to feel more lonely than I ever had in my life. And I think that was due to the fact that most people go there if with a significant other or at least in a small group. They're with friends and they're roaming around looking at the art and listening to music and experiencing the full Burning Man experience, but they're doing it with people. And I was totally alone. I was cruising around, checking it all out, but I was doing it totally solo. And after the first shock of that first crazy day wore off, I started to feel lonely. Now, because Burning Man only lasts for a week, it was a temporary feeling. And I knew that. It sort of set this tone of, okay, this is a little bit lonely. I'd rather be doing this with someone else, but it's over after a week and I go back to my normal life, to the default world where distractions come back in, the routine takes over, and the loneliness tends to go away. But now I'm age 55 and I have enough of a nest egg to travel around to beautiful destinations. But now that I'm in my first location, which is Cebu, Philippines, I can start to feel that old familiar feeling creeping back in. So I don't have any solid plans. I don't have a real agenda. I don't have a schedule or a calendar that's full. I have now total freedom of time, an unstructured day that I can do anything I want, which on one hand seems like it would give me a feeling of freedom. But I'm definitely noticing a bit of that Burning Man sensation coming in that feels like, what now? And it feels a little bit lonely. And as I sit with that and look into the future or feel my way into the future, I can sense that there's a strong possibility of feeling not only lonely, but just purposelessness. Like my life doesn't really have meaning to anyone else, that what I do doesn't really matter. It's one thing to go out and have fun and enjoy the beach and see the sights and all of that, but that doesn't help the world in any way. It doesn't improve anyone's lives. It's a selfish thing to do. It's self-care in a way, but it is selfish. And it doesn't have any real deep meaning. And it's important to me for my life to have meaning. So that's what scares me. That's what kind of keeps me up at night. And it's very uncomfortable. And I think a lot of potential expats or soon to be, retirees have that concern, but it's so scary they're not necessarily willing to face it or talk about it, because this idea of spending the next 20, 30, 40 years of your life and that life doesn't really have any meaning or purpose, that's really scary. And most people don't want to talk about that. But I wanted to share with you to keep it real. Yes, I could do videos about the destination, and yes, I'll be doing more videos. In fact, the very next one's going to be my initial impressions about Cebu, Philippines as a potential retirement location. But I wanted to do something a little different today and keep it very real and share my true feelings here, because it's uncomfortable, but I'm not powerless. I do intend to do something about it. So there's 3 elements that I want to share with you that I think will help with this. I won't know until I try them. But the first one is this: doing YouTube and talking to you guys. So although I'm talking to a camera right now, there's no one behind it. It's just me and this camera. I know that eventually when this video goes online, people will see it. I hope people will see it anyway. And if I am vulnerable, if I'm honest, I have the potential to help people, to assist people. Because if there's other people out there who have the same concerns and I share my approach, maybe it will benefit them. So doing YouTube and talking to the camera and just sharing my life and what I'm feeling and doing, I think will add value to the world. And it's my little way of serving as best I can in a small capacity, but maybe on a larger scale if the channel grows and more people see videos like this. So the YouTube's a big one. The next thing I hope to do, I want to do, is to do charitable giving in not in private, not in flashy ways, but through small interactions. And I'll give you an example. Just yesterday, I was walking to the nearby grocery store, a Robinson's grocery store, and I felt something brush my left hand. And I was kind of startled and looked down, and there was a little boy, had like tiny little boy, maybe 5 or 6 years old, 7, had touched my hand. And my initial reaction was to say no. And he kind of touched my hand again, like he was getting my attention and wanting money, which is actually illegal to do here, to give money to people on the street. So I brushed him off again. But when I got to the grocery store, I started to feel guilty about that because as I figured out later, it's him and his sister and his mom live on the street right by that grocery store. They spend their entire day there. And I started to feel guilty. I even had some cash in my pocket, some peso coins that I didn't give him, I guess because I was taken by surprise, and my initial reaction was to say no. Long story short, when I got my food and came out of Robinson's, I went by him again and I gave him a little bit of coinage. But I want to do more of that. I can afford to give away some money. I can afford to buy a kid a $5 pair of shoes, or multiple kids. I can afford an extra bag of groceries. So it's definitely my intention to use what little wealth I've accumulated for good, especially when there's so many indigent, really desperate people, particularly here in Cebu and in the Philippines, where I can make a difference. So charitable giving is another one. So the third thing I think I can do to feel purpose oriented or driven towards something meaningful is to connect with the expat community wherever I travel to, at least in cases where I'm staying in a place for more than, say, a week or two. Because making even just one friend who I can consider a friend will give me a sense of connectedness, even if that friendship isn't going to last for years, because maybe he moves on, maybe I move on. This is an exploratory trip after all. But having someone that feels like a friend, I think makes a big difference. Sharing some of your life experience, sharing some stories, sharing your challenges and solutions you've found to those challenges, and just being able to relate to someone on a very basic level is important. And if you can see that person, once or twice a week and maybe do something together, even if it's just a cup of coffee, I think that's really important too. So connecting with community, I think, is the third sort of pillar. Because again, I've been blessed in my life to accumulate not a fortune, but enough to do what I'm doing, to travel, to have options about where I live in the world. If I withhold that, if I don't share any of those gifts with anybody, that just makes me a greedy jerk. And not making a contribution to the world, I think, makes a person just drift. And while YouTube isn't the biggest contribution in the world, it's sort of the best that I can come up with. And I'm hoping that this type of video will resonate with people and they will comment. So I would encourage you to comment. Have you been to the Philippines? Are you about to retire? Do you have some big concerns about the rest of your life? Whether you're still working or retired, we all have a certain number of years or decades left. And I think we all have a deep-seated need to make those years have meaning and to provide value to the world and to people. And so what's your plan? What are you doing? How do you find purpose? If your kids are grown and you don't have a job anymore and all of those traditional structures are starting to fall away, maybe you've lost a spouse or two, what are you doing for purpose, for meaning? I would love to know, because if you can provide some answers, hey, maybe I'll get something out of it, and hopefully you got something out of this video as well. So that's my big fear, drifting, unanchored, purposelessness. It's not a good feeling, but I've got a plan and I'm moving forward with it. And even though there's a lot of unknowns in my future, at least I have some control, and that's how I intend to exercise some control. So don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. See ya.